I do have a full presentation here and materials to share out after the fact. This will be recorded. We will be sharing everything. I am mindful of everyone's time as well. So if I can give you back time in your schedule, great. If not, those who want to stay after to continue to do some of the brainstorming sessions, feel free. The focus of today's call is really going to be around thinking about you've got a summer of hopefully a little bit of time with students not being present where you can really prioritize ideas of what next year holds, as well as close out projects and initiatives from the previous year. What we're going to do is look at strategic ideas of how to plan. Those of us who are joining are going to be at very different stages. All of our clients at Wavelength are at a variety of stages in terms of how long their school's been in existence to how large the size of your advancement development alumni office is. The priorities, they're all going to be different. So I'm going to try and have ideas that work for a wide range of people, as well as provide you strategic actions and tools to bring back that you can actually apply to your own personalized school needs. As I'm sharing, this is meant to allow you to actually interact as well. So if you have questions, if you want to dive deeper into a concept, or if you want to share like something that's been really successful for your own school, please feel free to do so. Interrupt either by literally just speaking, or you can raise your hand or put something in the chat. The intent, again, is this is collaborative if you want it to be, and we also have a bunch of materials to share out so you can take this back to your own team. So without further ado, I will start. I know people continue to join us over time. Is everyone able to see right now my screen? Because that's the most important part. I'm seeing some nodding heads. Excellent. So first of all, just to introduce myself, I am Katie Gibson, the CEO of Wavelength. We are an alumni software and strategic company that focuses on data support as well as alumni engagement through a platform. I'm joined by Maggie, who is one of our sales associates here, and we're really excited just to talk with you about the concept of how you plan ahead and look ahead. My background is in consulting and strategic planning, so I have a lot of experience in this space around trying to think through how do you plan, knowing that you're not working in silo. And that's the biggest thing that I want to call out is when you're thinking about the future and thinking about all these projects and initiatives, we know that you all are wearing multiple hats. You have multiple different responsibilities from the sense of your own personal work to also your personal life. And from a school perspective, you're going to be drawn into projects unexpectedly. So my hope with this entire presentation is that over time, you have the ability to understand when I say I'm doing this project, what is truly the lift in resources, my time, my effort, or other people's efforts? How does it relate to the schedule of the school year, to every other initiative going on? And how do I make sure that we're prioritizing and making realistic, right choices of what can be done versus what should be done and what needs to be done? So to start, when it comes to summer planning, there's always some easy things to consider around projects that are going to need to get done. And those come to mind like events, fundraising, all these different major ticket items. But I actually like to try and bucket these concepts into at least 4 different buckets, because there's some things that aren't considered, but need to be considered for the success of your program. Constituent engagement, that's a pretty straightforward one. You do have to figure out the definition of engagement, but those are, alumni being your focus. How are you reaching out to them? We'll dive deeper into some ideas of what those engagement contacts are, but that's obviously going to be a big bucket. Constituent value is also one around fundraising or other people, other teams understanding the value of your alumni base. Volunteer management and tools and resources are ones that sometimes fall by the wayside, but from a summer planning perspective need to be considered. So when it comes to tools and resources, what do you have at your service when it comes to platforms, when it comes to data, when it comes to even staffing? You have to understand, and you all are very aware, when there's staff turnover and new hires are coming in, there is a time to have them fully rolled up and functioning in role. So when you're thinking of all these other major projects happening, homecoming, you might know what homecoming's been like in the past, but if you have a new hire who's supporting you, it's not going to be like previous years. You're going to have to loop them in. You're going to have to train them. So what we're trying to do here is really bucket all of the projects and initiatives that might be happening either from a summer timeline or for the full year, so that you can see how interconnected it is and make sure that there's nothing that's forgotten about. And not that it would actually be forgotten. What's going to happen is it's going to come up onto your plate and you're not going to be able to move other things, and it's just going to be added and you're not going to know how to balance it all. Or you make it balanced by working more or whatever else it might be. So what we also understand is that the weight of each of these sections are going to be different. You also might need to redefine them yourself. So maybe it's not constituent value, but maybe it's fundraising that's really been put as a priority, and it's beyond just the alumni base, but everyone. So depending on your role, these buckets and these terms and priorities are going to shift. And that's why I just don't want you to forget that the baseline of tools, resources, staffing, as well as some of the other community members, volunteers, other partnerships with faculty and staff, those can't be forgotten when you're thinking of some of the bigger ticket items that everyone talks about in terms of what your job role actually is. So when you're thinking of these 4 groups, I'm going to stick with these 4 again. You can create whatever types of groups you want. I like to take a step back during the summertime. We do this here at Wavelength of understanding, okay, let's take a breather for a second. Schools the students are out. There's some people taking vacations. Sometimes those vacations are actually like really healthy from resetting your brain space just to brainstorm and be more creative. When it comes to a brainstorming session, this can be with yourself, it could be with your team, it could be with peers in the space at your school or also outside of your school who are maybe in the same job title. But what I really encourage you doing is from the very start, thinking through ideas without constraints. So I know there are limitations. There's always going to be the budget constraint. There's going to be a time constraint. There's going to be a lot of constraints. But if you don't just try and throw out what your top priorities and top visions are without those constraints, you're never going to get there in the long run. Because if you're not pie in the sky, you're just going to keep moving the goalpost of what that pie in the sky is down the line, because there are step projects, and we'll get to this later. I have visuals and tools that you can use to help visualize this. But if you aren't trying to step by step reach that pie in the sky vision, it's never going to happen without you doing a little bit of legwork each year. So brainstorming, thinking through what your priorities are. I personally reset in nature, so I go outside and sit and try and really capture all of the main ideas of what I think needs to happen. And while you're throwing out ideas, you might start to recognize some of these are actual projects versus some of these are more like a vision or a goal I have. That's okay. Just like throw them all out to start, but make sure that they are related to the sections of what we've talked about. Are you forgetting that, you need a platform to be able to send out mailings that are going to be personalized by first name or whatever it is? Like, you need to make sure that you're capturing the full circle of vision and goal so that it leads to a holistic full vision. So if I'm just throwing out ideas of some key things that schools we've worked with before have prioritized or that fit into some of the buckets I've mentioned, some people are really focused from a constituent engagement side of wanting all alumni that are contactable to have at least one engagement this school year. Now, that engagement for each school could differ greatly. Is that you want them to be opening an email? Is that attending an event? Is that submitting class notes? Whatever it is, you want to define engagement, but also if you see here, I made it very clear that it's all contactable alumni, because on the far right corner, you can see data is accurate and up to date. We know you're never going to have all your data up to date and accurate. We know that your data is shifting and you're going to have lost alumni. So when you're thinking about how do I improve engagement, it's engaging those alumni you already have contact with, and or it's re-engaging with people you've lost contact with, not because they've opted out, but merely that you've lost touch with them. So from a goals perspective, and we'll get to this later, young alumni is when you're going to frequently lose contact because you have their school addresses. There's a few solutions there, but let's make it very clear when you're starting to think through the next year. When you say, I want my alumni to have one touch point with the school, it's understanding it's contactable. And even if it's like, hey, they're linked by social media, they're following us, I have no other contact information on them, but we do have some alumni follow us, that might be sufficient for you. Some other goals could be, I want all of my official volunteers to be mobilized effectively and efficiently. This is big picture, right? So you're thinking about how right now, how many volunteers do you have? What are they assigned today? Are those assignments accurate? Are those what you actually need to support your other projects? So this summertime analysis is really helpful to take a step back, because realistically, a lot of your volunteers are also taking breaks or maybe less active, and you're going to want to be mobilizing them year round during the school year. Here is the time to recognize setting expectations. What do you hope from them? What do you need to be able to get them to that level of being able to support you? Another idea around constituent or alumni value could be having your partner faculty and staff understand the value of your alumni base and try and bring them back into the classroom. Use them for speaker series, senior projects, internship, whatever it might be. Do your fellow faculty and staff know that alumni are resources themselves outside of simply having the relationship of the school because they attended? So I mentioned in our email around this roundtable invite that data is always going to be top of mind. That's something that we really prioritize here at Wavelength. When you're thinking of some of these goals, you want to think, we've talked about contactable data, you want to really understand what your current state of your data health is. I think summertime, after the campaigns and fundraising efforts are over through the end of this June, there's a lot of ways that you can try and visualize an understanding of, let's get a breakdown of how many total alumni do I have? How many do I have contact information for? How many donated? And you can do the breakdown by a bunch of different ways too, of class year, age groups, location, size of giving, all of that. But having an accurate understanding of what your current state is will let you find the holes for next year. So if you recognize this past year that, wow, we are really missing from 1990 to 1998, we have a really low percentage of people with information. Therefore, their participation at events, their participation for fundraising is lower. That'll help you also target your goals for engagement of, if I want more people engaged, I want to have 5 more contact details from these class years that we're missing. It's from a CRM perspective and database perspective. There are thousands and thousands of data points that people track. There are thousands of rows of people. So it's very hard sometimes to get a full visual understanding of what's happening. And so there are times where, I don't know if you have a database manager, sometimes you can actually export into a spreadsheet to get visuals. It depends on your database. Sometimes they'll give visuals yourself. But I do think taking a step back this summer to say, hey, this is what we have. What do we want to work towards this upcoming year? Another data concept is from your faculty and staff understanding what information you have on the alumni base so that they know that you can track by, hey, we've actually got alum in the area who could come back in, or we have alumni in these career fields. Oh, you want someone to be talking about their art or literature work back in the classroom, we can find those alumni for you. There's such value to an alum feeling contacted for a personalized reason of speaking to students. And at the same time, faculty and staff are going to see the value of your office and the efforts you're putting in. The other two ideas we had here is like contactable alumni, I already referenced. Volunteers being mobilized, something they can do is actually help with data as well. In terms of they're likely more in touch with their content, with their classmates or surrounding class years to help you out. This is an initiative where a lot of times around data collection, people are saying, oh, you're only contacting me to fundraise. We urge and encourage that if you're going to be asking for data updates, that people see the value beyond the fundraising. So, hey, we're about to send out the annual magazine, or we are wanting to host more events in your area. Is this accurate information? That's going to be really helpful in making sure data is maintained without people saying, don't just ask me for money. So there are a whole bunch of different goals that you can be considering. And back to just the brainstorming idea, throw out these goals. These are things that leadership might also be telling you are goals of yours. And you just want to make sure that you're capturing all of the potential ideas. And then we're going to get into this, dive deeper into if this is an ultimate goal, it's not going to be fully obtainable this year, but how do we create projects where it leads to that goal being reached? As I'm talking with you all, are there any questions so far since what I've shared?
This is Camille from Carolina Friends School. I do want to say that part of your screen, I thought it was me, but it looks like part of your screen doesn't show us. We can kind of guess what it is, but the left portion of your screen is, yeah, that's better.
Is that better? Okay, I'm going to keep it
Yeah,
up for the presentation view then. Okay.
yeah, because it cuts off part of it. And if it's just me, someone else speak up, please, and I'll try to adjust.
It's fine. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm happy to have it be this way. If everyone can see the full screen now, then we're golden.
Yeah, and you were just talking about if you could go back to the one where you had the data and you were looking at the one more, I think here, looking at this I was looking at, and now I've forgotten my question. I'm so sorry. But tell us about, okay, you just zoomed in. So this is what we can do, and we can look at the emails that we've sent out in the past year to see
Yes,
how
so
that went.
that's a great question. So absolutely. So this visual actually is something from Wavelength's platform where we actually look at, here are the total number of alumni you have. Here's the percentage of that you have emails on. So here's like the percentage of people that are missing email addresses versus phone numbers. The data of the value, like the data value here is implying if I send 10 emails out for fundraising and only one person donates a value of $100, then the value of an email is $10 per email, because I send 10 emails out, I get $100 back. And so you do the division there. When you're talking about actually email campaigns, this is something that I haven't captured here, but it is something that most of your email providers, and we have it ourselves, will give you an exact breakdown of what are the open rates, what are the bounce back rates, the click-through rates, and that's actually going to be really helpful exercise to look at your past initiatives, because you might actually see that you've got a 60% open rate for a certain topic, and then for another topic, you've got a 20% open rate to the same exact base. And maybe it's the subject line, maybe it's the actual material itself, whatever it is, that's going to be really helpful for you to test for next year. All right, we've got this same exact initiative. What if we do some A/B testing of trying something new in terms of materially what we're sharing out? Or do we try a different channel? Or do we have other alumni? a lot of alumni can actually get their fellow peers to get more engaged too. If we have alumni send out an email to the same base, what's the uptick on the click-through level of just getting them to sign up for an RSVP? Does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you.
Yeah. So I do think looking at like past analysis is incredibly helpful for sure. What you're going to be able to do, especially from marketing, and I'll actually show you some marketing visuals in a little bit. Understanding the audience of your marketing campaigns as well is going to be really important to think through of, is this an alumni specific initiative? Is this a community-wide one? The topic itself, is it generic? Is it personalized? As you see from your previous outreach and engagement levels there, you'll be able to perhaps adjust your marketing down the line to see if the more personalized outreach, or if you send the same exact message out, but maybe have, you know, a targeted high alumni language and then the same exact content that you'd send to parents, you could actually potentially see that there's different engagement just because it's, oh, this is for me in particular, or it feels like that to the user. Any other questions I can help to answer right now? All right. And feel free, please, like, interrupt if you can't see any of this. We are going to be sharing out, but I'm happy to zoom in too on some of the visuals as we talk through this. So what we were talking about is you are capturing ideas of, okay, what next year needs to be priority, throwing out high level concepts, regardless of their, you know, whether they're realistic or not, making sure that they are diverse in terms of hitting a variety of those buckets that I either have captured for you or that you're going to create yourself. And then it's an understanding of how, well, first of all, it's all going to be interconnected, but really, are these projects what are truly necessary? I like to do an exercise called the 5 whys, where you actually dig way deeper from the surface of why is this project in particular necessary for next year. So if the priority is all alumni have at least one engagement with the school per year, I'm asking myself, why is that important? Why does that matter for the alumni? Why is that mattering for my team to focus on when there's all these other initiatives going on? This goal itself could be a recognition of, like, improve my data. Why is that important now? Because we've got a major 75th anniversary coming up 2 years from now, and we need to get our data set to like be able to really hit the ground running for us to be successful. You really want to think through deeply, why is this so necessary? And if you can articulate this exercise in a way so that peers know, no, my effort has to go here because, or you're talking with leadership of, this is where I think my effort should be and why, it's going to help in terms of a prioritization and an understanding of where your efforts are going to be located. One exercise, this isn't supposed to help prove your point. It's also supposed to actually help question. So we've worked with schools who have wanted to create a full-blown app on their phone for their alumni to use. And ultimately, what has been concluded is a full app on your phone isn't actually what the need is. What the need is, you just want to have information and alumni be able to connect when and where they're ready to connect. But the app isn't necessarily the solution, because if you're doing the research, you know, downloading apps, changing behavior, having people check into a new system, whatever it is, that wasn't the answer. And instead, it pivoted this ultimate top left box into saying, no, we don't need like an app. What we need is a solution to provide easy access to resources and to each other. And instead, it's let's research what that looks like rather than assume that a mobile app is the answer. So just take a step back and asking yourself if that's really the priority. So when it comes to these big goals around, I need to focus on engagement. Engagement, I've talked about this before in terms of definition. You want to define what that engagement really is. And so with engagement, you want to think through that people are at different life stages. They're geographically in different locations. So yes, you can be hosting events, but not everyone's going to be around said events. Some people might not feel comfortable with events, but really enjoy, talking with faculty or wanting to hear updates about what the school is doing. So what you want to think through is really breaking down the potential, all of the potential engagement touch points and seeing what's realistic to your schedule. You can't have events in every single city. You cannot be sending out communications on a regular basis because you don't have enough time to be doing both the marketing plus the planning, campaigns, like everything else. And also, is that what your alumni truly want? So when you're thinking about, again, I'm just going to focus on engagement being a priority. We've got a marketing and event schedule. If I switch over to the spreadsheet, are people able to see the spreadsheet right now? I've moved over to Excel. Are people seeing it's a marketing and event schedule?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So with this, I will share this out. You'll be able to change it however you want. But what we find is you want to lay out what your marketing and event schedule is going to be like for the school, both for within your department, but also understanding what else is happening throughout the rest of the school's major initiatives. Because if the school timetable has some major student events and you're going to need support from the marketing or tech team at the same exact time for your own event, it's really helpful to overlay everything together. This is not just for events. This is also for communications and marketing initiatives. You don't want your alumni base to get a whole bunch of communications from school-wide communications to alumni-specific ones all within the same month, and then have a dry spell of a few months of no contact whatsoever. So I would encourage whatever visual you need, actually having it laid out to understand what are the commitments for your team, what are your commitments from the school in terms of the contact points, but also personally, you also are going to have your own life as well. You're going to have your vacation schedule. You're going to have busy family schedules or commitments. Writing those in to see what might be, blackout dates of these are not good. This is not a good month to try a new project out, or this initiative. Like, I must remember that at the end of the school year, I'm getting the graduates to get their personal contact information, helping with graduation, me trying to schedule another marketing campaign, or me trying to have another event during this busy month doesn't make sense. So having a fully laid out calendar, understanding the touch points of where you fit into it, as well as where do your alumni fit in, is going to be really useful for you to be able to have an understanding of what the whole school year looks like. I am seeing a comment there about overlaying personal events, and that's definitely important to do. Is we all need to understand we have our own lives outside of school. And so putting your own personal understanding of like those events, and even just, as I said, like if you have a busy season for your kids, like sports teams, you want to be able to show up the way you want to. So that's why I always try and add into any of the planning, what are those dates and what are those responsibilities? Any questions around this marketing and event schedule? Again, you'll be able to take this and make it your own. I threw in some ideas of just like what might already be there, but I do think audience and message intent for marketing, as well as the events and audience, is important to consider around the school year in general. All right. So I've been talking a lot about visions, goals, projects, all of that. I like to visualize it this way, of understanding you yourself, you, your team, you, your school, your headmaster, whatever type of definition you want, have this ultimate vision. And you've got all of these surrounding goals that are leading to that vision. And to reach those goals, there are these projects, and then you've got all these little small tasks that are adding up to deliver on those projects, to deliver on those goals, which ultimately lead to that vision. The whole intent is breaking this down to visualize truly the effort and impact it is taking on your day-to-day, so you understand how to better manage the year, as well as better communicate why you can or cannot fully deliver on a request if someone else is trying to partner, and be able to show, I've got XYZ priorities this month for this reason. I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet in a second, because this is part 2 of the spreadsheet. Is when you're thinking through these projects, you can actually do the same exact breakdown of from like the marketing and events concept into any project you have. And we have to understand, again, from your projects, that you aren't working alone. So there are often times that you're going to have staff supporting at events. You're going to have, from like campaign perspectives, volunteers, faculty, everyone else who might be helping with asks. You're going to need marketing, IT. There are all of these different moving pieces. So what I encourage you doing when you're thinking of a project is actually mark out how, like, if you're putting a date on this initiative is happening here. And I'm focusing on events because that's pretty easy to like follow along here, but this could be for anything. It could be, we are doing a database turnover by this date. What needs to happen beforehand? What you want to do is think through, okay, if this is the ultimate timeline of when we need to deliver, how far out do I need to start working on it myself versus other teammates? And what are the tasks required to complete it, and in what order? So if this project is to host an alumni event in a large city, then it's understanding I have to first do research into which city should that be. Do we need to attend it? Do we have volunteers? Do we have staff already there? What type of materials and preparation and research and other resources are required to actually lead up to this point? And oh, by the way, what else is happening throughout this entire project up to this September timeline that might impact my ability or my teammates' ability to deliver on this initiative? So that's why these really pair together of, here are major events and initiatives going on that I'm aware of, or that my team is that's happening too. Here's a project I have planned, and here are some of the initiatives and tasks that need to get going. Does it really make sense to be hosting an event at this time if it's in crisis mode for other people while they're doing another initiative? So again, this is going to be pretty small to read. I know that it will be captured. This is an example of like, okay, your vision is to have a local event in a few different major cities. What needs to happen? You've got someone determining the key markets. You've got another person developing the marketing materials. How far out do you need to send the save the dates? All of this stuff. The key, again, is the mapping out so that you have something to track to, that other teammates have something to track to, and you're also adding in buffer time or understanding that here's the deadline. You've got a little bit of wishy-washy room to be able to move some of these tasks around. But ultimately, if these tasks aren't claimed or completed, this initiative isn't going to happen. As I've stated before, there is a lot of overlap with initiatives happening. Everything's interconnected. Back to the data front, you need strong data to be able to identify your key markets of where you'd want to be hosting an event outside of your school. So that's why there are times where you might need to realize, back to this visual, I need to prioritize a specific project in another category. Maybe I need to get volunteers up and mobilized so that they can help me host an event or be able to help out with Day of Giving, but I first need to do this other initiative to be able to lead into this next one. So the reason why I like the spreadsheets visuals is that you can have either multiple tabs or like multiple cells, so you can kind of see the overlap and visualize it that way. Some people truly hate spreadsheets, totally get it. That's fine too. So find whatever works for you on how to lay this out. But I do think you want to see the overlay, because without it, it's very easy to forget how much work and effort you already put in and trying to organize your thoughts and projects. So we're thinking about project deliverables. As we said, you're trying to kind of break down any of these goals. These are just examples of various goals that there could be, and really like what you want those sub projects to look like to reach that goal. What you want to think about, as I've stated again, like pie in the sky long-term vision, you're going to have some goals that take more than 1 year. You're going to have goal one, let's say like you want to host more, back to the events. You want to host multiple events in major market cities. You're not going to host 5 in the first year. Let's say you want to host 1 the first year and 2 to 3 the next year and grow the following year. Or same with your data. Let's just start with saying year 1, you've got a better approach with how to handle your graduate data. Year 2 is not only are you capturing graduate data, but you've got a plan to have all young alumni for the last like 8 years of graduation. You're prioritizing, focusing, getting better data on them. Or you're prioritizing sports data so you can have coaches reaching out. Whatever it might be, these are all going to be step stages to reaching your vision down the line. I understand that this is it's cleaner than what reality truly is. All of you are either new to role, who are either inheriting previous goals that you are going to continue to see through, or potentially pivoting, but needing to pivot from a different base than where you're starting from. Some of you are already a few years in, so your starting base is actually going to be different. Others, you're hiring new people. This is always going to be in flux, and I'm happy to spend time like talking through some of how to manage that. But I do want to acknowledge what I'm saying is not always as clean as it looks, but the hope is that at least it can give you a direction. So as I said, here's just an example. You want to host, local alumni events. Where do you start? Maybe 1 or 2 major markets. This is, again, like pie in the sky, maybe closer to college or larger independent school, but it's just an understanding of build up your goals. Understand that year 1 is, setting stage. Year 2 is learning from previous year and growing. And how do you go from there? This can happen for every single goal you've set out for yourself in any context of like which category you've placed it in. It's very easy to talk about events. It's very easy to talk fundraising goals. Like there's certain numbers there. When it comes to tools and resources, maybe your ultimate goal is to build out your team from your team of 1 to a team of 3, but to get there, you first have to have like some increased fundraising, or maybe you have some platforms that can support you as an in-between before you can hire a part-time support or whatever it is. Understand that goals, some of them, events, like all those can be like sexy and easy to talk about. But there's some other ones that you have to understand are also step stages, and data can be messy, and talking finances and team budget is messy, but it's one where if you aren't having those conversations, they won't be fixed, and they do need to be addressed, in understanding that if you don't have a budget that can support your other projects, or again, this is talking with leadership, if your leadership is asking X of you and you can come back and say, okay, to deliver on X, this is what I think we need, but to do that, we need a different budget, or we need some other resourcing to support this initiative because of time, that's where you're better able to articulate yourself. So another visual just to help out, and I'm clicking between slides just because I like to have some duplicates just to keep the message clean here. But there are other times where if these 4 categories don't work for you, I like to consider the brand house, where what is the true purpose of your department? What is your vision of the alumni base? What are the values that you want? If you're in an elevator with a fellow colleague who is not in your department and they said, what are your priorities for your alumni vision? What are they? And you can name, I want alumni to be eagerly engaged with the current student base and like what's happening at the school. I want to have, a very clear endowment goal, campaign goal, where alumni are regularly donating beyond just participation, but we've got clear goals for major donors. You know, if you have those values captured, and again, aim for 3 to 4, it really helps in prioritizing your projects. If you're asked to do X and X doesn't fit into one of these column values, you need to have a very hard conversation of, do I put my effort here? And this is oftentimes where you're making decisions as a team, making decisions with leadership. You're asking me to do this. I want to hear your acknowledgement that this is priority and something else is going to have to be moved off, or this is adding to my plate, but it's taking away from the value or the direction of this alumni vision. Is that okay? Or it's very easy for you to say, sorry, this is not in my wheelhouse. We have some other priorities we need to work on. So the brand house is something where, from a scientific perspective, people like memorize 3 to 4 things at most. When it comes to like values, I used to work for in finance, and one of the credit cards like had 34 different benefits. But you did a research, you like asked the credit card holders, you know, what are the benefits? They could only retell 3 or 4. That is generic across any industry. 3 or 4 is going to be like what comes to mind for most people. So if you can capture your concepts into big 3 or 4 chunks, that's what you want people to be able to remember. That's what you want to focus on, and make sure that you're working towards, does this fit to my brand house? Does this fit to the alumni vision? So with that said, there are a few quick wins this summer beyond major goals that I just want to call out. From a marketing side, you have a lot of opportunity around taking the celebratory graduates and their information and being able to share and welcome them out to the alumni base. If you haven't done so already, sending out a fun mass email to your alumni, inviting in the new graduates, celebrating some highlights, maybe from the school year, saying, you know, these seniors led the school to regionals of this, or had a great showing of this performance. Calling out school initiatives, celebrating your students, maybe where they're going off to college, whatever it might be, that's a great first contact point. The young alumni will feel recognized, and it's, I think, a great way for your older alumni to see the continued success of your school. This is also where, from a data side, and I think the order here is different, but from a data side, if you reach out, if you recognize, wow, I've captured 50% of my graduates' personal email addresses, I don't have the other 50%. You still have a stronger relationship with the parents of those young alumni where you could actually still reach out to them. You can couch this as, we want to send a welcome or like good luck message to the graduates as they head off to the next stage of their life, be it high school, be it college, be it beyond. And in order to do so, we are missing some emails. Do you mind supplying your child's email to us so we can send them, you know, a congratulatory message? That's one way to capture it. Having your young alumni parents also see that you're continuing to invest in their students even after they've graduated is a real value add overall. So from a data side, short-term, focus on the young alumni, have the parents perhaps support that. From a marketing side, I would target the young alumni as, whether it's like a send-off barbecue event, or we've had a school, and I know I've mentioned this on a past roundtable, but it's been so successful, some other schools have picked this up. Like the day after Thanksgiving, there's a pickup like soccer league where people just come play. It's family, it's alumni, it's coaches, all play together. Having a pickup league, that is very inexpensive to host, but also brings a full community together. So you can do events like that where it's not as big a lift, but from a value add, it's very high. Lastly, from a summer event prep, there are events that happen pretty quickly into the fall semester, be it homecoming, be it, you know, even just thinking ahead for some holiday campaigns, fundraising campaigns. If you can do a layout of what I've shared here from like a marketing of this is, the 3-month plan, that'll really help you to keep track on your to-do list from a week-to-week basis. So I know I've been talking at you all for some time. We have time now to actually like deep dive into either questions, or if there was a specific, okay, if this is a goal, how do we break this down? I could work with you all on an exercise like that in terms of how to use some of the tools I've shared here to get really that breakdown experience. But I want to leave it up to you. And also, if you all want to take time back and head on your way too, that's fully feasible. So I'm here for questions or exercises. And if you don't want to talk but want to put it in the chat, you can always do that as well. We're going to give people time.
I'd be open to looking at a project, working on a project together. Is there anyone here? Because I got my question answered earlier. Is there anyone else who has a project this coming year, an event?
And if we're hearing silence, I'd be happy to start taking yours
Okay.
on, and we can go on with others too after this.
Yeah. So, one thing that we're excited about is we are celebrating our 60th anniversary this year, and it's going to be a year-long worth of activities that we've done each year. But then the big event will be in April, which we haven't done. We've done something similar in previous celebrations.
Yes.
So, that takes place at the end of April,
Yes. Okay.
and that will be akin to a homecoming.
Okay. And so in terms of the event, so this is where I immediately start the kind of questions that arise from me here are these events community wide? Are they targeted to specific, like, are you planning to have some that are, maybe trustee level versus all alumni versus parents, community members? How are you thinking of your year-round events versus the homecoming?
So the majority of them are community-wide.
Yeah.
Several are with a focus of alumni, where the alumni might engage with current students.
Oh, nice.
One thing that is already in the works is there will be an alumni versus current student soccer match in
Excellent.
August. They're going to melt.
Cool.
But anyway,
Healthy
there's
competition.
right, right. And then we're a Quaker school, and so we've also thought about gathering, and would be community-wide, where we invite members of the CFS, the school community, to gather at one of the two Friends meetings. And these are our worship centers, the two worship centers that started our school. So there's that. We have a turkey trot every Thanksgiving, right? And that's community-wide. So that's what I mean. But some that are more specific to just alums.
From the events side, are you having them all in person, or are there going to ever be like some remote, perhaps like fireside chats to allow those geographically dispersed to like attend?
So we have one for sure that will be remote. That will be online so that remote folks can join us. And that is our remembrance ceremony, which we have the first Friday of November. And that usually draws well. It did not draw as well this past year because I let it and missed some things that have always been done. And I don't know of other things that are planned that's the only one that I have planned for virtual.
So, when it comes to events, I think COVID made it very clear about like some of the limitations around events being in person and how it can actually lose out on some people who do want to participate but can't. So I think I would recommend, if you not, to add to your list of events, but I think having a non-remembrance, because remembrance I think is absolutely essential. But there's also a emotional toll and angle
For sure.
that's different. So there are times where you could have something, and I mentioned like a fireside chat of there could be favorite faculty members that might not even be at the school anymore, but are well known that could have, a fireside chat with, hey, come join. We're going to do a virtual Zoom and you can all be, asking questions and hearing insights about from, a favorite or two. And it might encourage people to participate who can't attend, or also we all have to understand that alumni events can be uncomfortable for individuals, but some might just want to listen in, and that would be more comfortable for them as well. So that might
Yeah,
be
I
good
like that.
weather.
Okay,
So
excellent.
remote, you've got activities that are like fun physical activities. I'm sure there's some other, cocktail events and all of that. I think the key here is beyond the events themselves, how things are being communicated out, and how to share and celebrate the successes afterwards too. So RSVP and invites to then also afterwards being able to share out, we're sorry you couldn't attend. We had a great showing. Here are some highlights. I
Thank you.
would have that. Again, this is kind of going back to how everything's interconnected between like marketing, communications, and tracking and all of that. I would actually have email, like outbound messaging going out, but if you can on your website have a spot that, and you may already be having this just around it being your 60th celebration, you might have, a dedicated location with materials. But if someone were just to happen upon it because they were clicking through the website and they've lost contact with you, so they never received the email, but you can still have a way people can find it via social media, via your website, is also a useful way to show all the effort, and also have either a contact form, or if you have an alumni portal, just making sure that your website houses the resources so people who you've lost contact with can get back in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I
So,
like that.
um, yeah, I think the key, because this is going to be a big year of events, is trying to then like list out that full calendar view again of, okay, here are the events happening throughout the year in tandem with school events, or in addition to. What else beyond events are you being asked to do? Because it's going to be like events take a lot of prep, and it's also a lot of energy in the moment too. So it's all trying to just sustainably make sure that it's reasonable in terms of impact, effort, and just keeping that end goal of the big weekend being in April.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say I think all of the angles there are, you've got the events themselves, the marketing, the tracking of the data is something that you're going to also want to capture as well, of not only who's attending, but can you get updated data on them? So whether you have like a QR code that people can scan from their phone, fill out a form, definitely like at the beginning of the events, if you see people extra engaged, they might be able to be volunteers to help in future ones, or they might be able to say, hey, do you want to send out invites to your classmates to join because you've already attended an event earlier on, just to try and increase engagement of what's your baseline engagement to start versus what are you going to get to throughout the year. The key is data collection from the get-go so that you have the largest amount of up-to-date data before that final April homecoming equivalent event.
There was something, Katie, you said earlier that makes me, that emboldens me to ask for all of their information. I'm pretty bold anyway, but still, to ask for all their information. And it was, going back to the parents or just sharing with them what they will capture
Yeah.
or what they will receive via those different methods of contact. So some people are wary of sharing their telephone number, but we can get to them quickly if we have a last minute opportunity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Some people say they don't want email, but that's how we notify most events is
Yeah.
through email. And then some people are resistant to their land mailing address, but that's how we get our, I don't know if we have it digitally, but that's how we get our publication that we
Yeah.
out
Exactly.
twice a year. So
Yeah.
thank you, because you're helping me to think about what the benefits are for them
It's
through
showing
those
them the value
vehicles.
add essentially is
Right,
the goal
right.
there. Yeah.
So thanks for that.
I think what you can also do from that angle is you can be asking from multiple channels. So you can be asking people who you already have emails for, but you also can be posting on social, or as I've mentioned, like there are tools out there. So we have like volunteer management tools that would allow you to say, hey, you're a class officer. These are the flagged profiles we have lost contact with. Do you have their information? And that way it's, again, you're using the data to give them a better experience with your school, and they're seeing the value add of why are you asking me this in the first place? It's so that we can inform you and empower you to connect back with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We heard from several, and I'm curious if other people on this call are experiencing this. Oh, I didn't know about it. And
Yeah.
oftentimes it's people who didn't want to share their info.
Um,
Anybody else?
yeah. Anyone on the call want to share that experience? Because I can definitely talk from schools that we've worked with, but I'm seeing a nodding head. Maybe. So please interrupt if you have if schools want to share your own experience, but we've worked with schools where they're like, oh, they're on our do not contact list, but they're the most active on your alumni portal. Like they don't, it's one where I think some people don't realize when they're opting out of everything instead of just saying, okay, you didn't want to hear this singular communication or this single fundraising situation, but you did want to participate in other ways. So that's definitely a challenge that schools face is people opting out or saying we didn't hear about it. And it's just, okay, we just need your contact information, or we can change what you've opted out from a communications request. But legally, like you have to follow through with what their requests are. Anyone else? Excellent. Well, I know that we're basically at time. I'm happy to stay on if there are any other specific questions people may have. Again, thank you for joining us. We've got another roundtable like this in, I believe, 2 weeks, and it's really around personalizing outreach for fundraising by using like more updated data and trying to differentiate by persona type. If you have topics that you want us to cover on future roundtables, feel free to email us, but we'll be sending out resources probably tomorrow morning from this call.